Hey there, welcome back. Today we're discussing the recent spotlight on weight loss drugs and obesity epidemic. Joining me today is Dr. Catherine Toomer. She's the founder of Total Weight Care Institute, and she's here to dive deeper into the topic. Doctor, it's great to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Last time I was in Aiken talking to you, now you're here.
Yes.
So welcome to Television Park.
Thank you, thank you.
No problem. We were talking before our interview. You had a chance to watch the Oprah Winfrey interview. So
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
I felt it was about time. It was good to see that there was a conversation being talked about, one, the blaming and shaming that happens with obesity treatment and being overweight. And it was also wonderful to have real people there talking about their experiences, but also Oprah herself talking about her experiences, but also the medications, because there's a lot of misinformation. Some of it is important for people to know because it's for safety reasons, but at the same time, we don't want it to scare people away from medication they need. So it was great to see that discussion happen.
So Wegovy and Ozempic, tell us a little bit about how those drugs work.
Okay, well, there's actually others. So what they're called is GLP-1s, and actually, which is a natural hormone our body makes, and what it does is it helps regulate our gut motility. It helps regulate our absorption of glucose, which is the byproduct of carbohydrate metabolism. And so we have Saxenda, which is FDA approved for weight loss, which is the weight loss version of Victoza, which is for diabetes. And then we have Wegovy for Ozempic, and then now we have a new one, Zepbound, for Mounjaro. And what those medications do is they help prevent the hormonal and the metabolic process that creates fat production. And it also works on the brain to help with appetite suppression.
And are there any potential risks for using these drugs?
There are always risks to using any drug, but these in particular, most of the risks with these drugs are if they're not monitored very closely, or if they're given inappropriately or taken inappropriately. And so the biggest risk is always the side effects. Nausea, vomiting, severe constipation, those are the most obvious that most people experience. But then the other is it can bring out eating disorders for people whose appetite gets suppressed to the point where they just don't want to eat at all.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there's pancreatitis, which is very, very rare. I've been prescribing these for almost 10 years, never had a case of pancreatitis.
Okay.
There were medullary thyroid cancer seen in rodents in testing. Still hasn't been seen in humans. And then there's always the risk of people being allergic to the medication, of going up too fast in the doses. And so any time that happens, any of those complications can happen. And then the most dramatic is the one we hear about the most is the stomach paralysis. Most of the stomach paralysis that we see is in someone who's predisposed already, has some other issues going on. And we also see that with diabetes, so we can't really tell which came first, the chicken or the egg,
Yes, ma'am.
when it comes to the medication. So, but that's usually pretty dramatic. We can see it coming from a mile away, and we can stop the medicine before that happens.
Well, are there any safe alternatives for weight loss?
There are, well, there's some that are in the works. For example, there's a natural supplement called berberine that people have been taking and are using, but it acts almost in the exact same way as the medications.
Yeah.
Essentially what it does is it helps with the metabolism of carbohydrates and glucose. And so it helps prevent fat production and then reverses fat production. Other than that, just eating well, eating cleanly, being very conscious about staying away from processed food is really the best way to go when it comes to weight loss.
So what about detoxes? Should we incorporate detoxes into our...
Well, the only reason we need to incorporate detoxes is if we're toxic, eating toxic things to begin with. So as long as we stay away from toxic elements in our lives, then there's no need to detox.
Even toxic people?
Even toxic people, especially toxic people, because stress in and of itself can cause weight gain.
Yeah.
And stress can cause actually a lot of problems with us. So yes, toxic people are one of them.
And since you're talking about weight gain, kind of share a little bit about your story.
Well, we talked about stress as
Yes,
being
ma'am.
so what happened with me is that I come from a family of diabetics, so I'm genetically predisposed. And so over time, through the stress of medical school, residency, having 2 babies in 3 years, getting married, moving several times, the stress of all of that combined with my genetics led me to becoming an insulin-dependent diabetic, mainly because my weight kept climbing. And no matter what I did, it just kept going up and up and up. And so by the time everything was said and done, I was over 100 pounds overweight. I'm only 5 feet tall. I don't know if you can tell how short I am, but I'm 5 feet tall. I was well over 200 pounds and on insulin. And then a month after my last daughter was born, I went into congestive heart failure. And that was a wake-up call. I was told I had a 50% chance of living 1 year, and if I didn't do something, I may not survive it. And so I knew that my weight was the only thing I could control. And so I went after my diabetes, knowing that it was contributing to my weight, and my weight was contributing to my diabetes.
Right.
And so instead of going the vicious cycle one direction, I reversed it and was able to lose about 60 pounds in 6 months. This was long before there were any type of medications to help. Then later, when these medications like Ozempic, Victoza came out, I was put on one to protect my heart. But it also caused weight loss, so I lost more weight. So now, after everything's said and done, it's been over 100 pounds.
Wow.
And that was 23 years ago, and I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, ain't that a blessing?
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah. You were mentioning, you know, you had children, and going back to the weight loss drugs, I think it's really interesting where a lot of folks say they found out that they're able to get pregnant when they had infertility issues. Kind of
Yes.
touch on that a little bit for me.
So again, a lot of the weight gain and the infertility are caused by the same hormonal issues, the same metabolic issues. And so a lot of times you see what's called PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome, is a metabolic issue that causes weight gain, that causes infertility. So when that's treated with the causes of weight gain, or it treats and it regulates their metabolic issues, then it also increases their fertility at the same time. The weight is a symptom we can see and measure, but it's only secondary to what's actually happening.
Yeah. So you would suggest a holistic approach when it comes to dealing with weight loss?
Absolutely. Yeah. I am a firm believer in the biopsychosocial approach to all things that are related to people, especially our health. And so the medication works on the biology, and the psychosocial is on us. We have to work on that, although the medications help with that also. But mainly, it's really important to look at our whole life and try to improve every part of it, not just the health part or the metabolic part.
Any takeaways before I let you go? We're kind of running low on time.
Okay. Any takeaways is that, you know, there's a lot of talk about the medications. They are very safe. They are very, if taken properly, if prescribed properly, if monitored properly. So the best thing to do is to ask your physician if it's right for you, and then not blame yourself if you're unable to lose weight without its assistance, because there often is an underlying metabolic cause for weight gain. And so sometimes it takes a metabolic fix to make it go away.
Okay. And one more thing, why is it allowed shame when it comes to obesity?
That's societal. There is a lot of shame because in medicine, particularly in medicine, we were taught that it was all about calories in, calories out, willpower, discipline. But what we found is that, one, our willpower and discipline is controlled by our brain. Our brain is controlled by blood sugar. And therefore, if you have a blood sugar issue, those things kind of fall by the wayside. Yeah. And so what happens is that it again creates this vicious cycle where it's actually biologic. And so when you treat the biology, suddenly that discipline and willpower comes out of nowhere. Wow. And so we realize it is not about that person. It's about their body sort of fighting against them.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Dr. Toomer, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And if there's anything else you'd like to talk about, you have a seat right here.
All right. Thank you. I'll
No
keep
problem.
you in mind.
And we'll be right back.